The first movie when we filmed that, 6, 7 years ago, was such a special kind of moment in time where it just was this little film that had a big heart and it connected with such a huge group of people. That story was satisfying. And I think for me as a director, I always was like, that chapter was closed and there was no possibility of ever going back to that world. And so when Brent McCorkle and Cindy Bonds came back with this idea of, have you heard the rest of Bart's story? I was very skeptical. They said it's kind of like the spiritual sequel to I Can Only Imagine. And I was like, no, that's the actual sequel. And so we pitched it to Lionsgate and walked them through it. And we had this big, elaborate pitch scheduled to do it. And we got about 30 seconds in and they stopped us and they're like, guys, we're obviously making this movie. Brent's one of my favorite filmmakers on the planet. He's fantastic. And what he and my brother crafted with the movie Jesus Revolution was just astounding. So when he came up with this idea, I just said, listen, if you're passionate about this one, I was like, it's yours to direct. But if you want, I would co-direct this with you. I would love to finish the story. At every stage, we wanted to feel designed as to break the world that we finished in the first movie and then heal it in a much more satisfying way. And so there's beautiful symmetry in this film to tell Bart's story. So like the first movie was a beautiful redemption story about this journey between a son towards his father. And it's really about Bart coming to terms with his abusive father as he's passing away, and that inspiring the song that he writes. And so the result of that journey was hope. This movie, the symmetry, was really about that it was a story of a father towards his son. So in this movie, Bart is really struggling with his own son because of circumstances that are out of their control. And really we break that world. And so he's really trying hard to kind of reconnect with his son and try to heal their journey. So it's a story that is a father towards his son, and the result of the journey is gratitude. And I think gratitude is just hope with a lot more teeth to it. Bart is such an interesting, complex character that with John Michael Finley coming back to play him is just a dream come true. When we decided we were going to do the movie, I called John Finley and I just said, there's two ways this could go down. I could get you to say yes now and we go make this movie, or I drive to New Jersey, I kidnap you until you say yes, and then we go make this movie. And so just he said, thankfully he said yes the first time. And but getting all these people back together, and Trace Adkins playing Brickle, and then the rest of the band members, and it's just there's something nostalgic about stepping back on that stage and with these people, the same people, almost a decade later, and being able to tell the rest of their story that is unique to our body of work at Kingdom. The spiritual guide for Bart's journey is this lovable kind of character named Tim Timmons. And he's struggling to write this song called Even If, and he can't figure out how to finish it. And that becomes kind of the catalyst for the story that we're telling. And he becomes this guide for Bart to try to reconnect with his why, his purpose. And so when we got into that, Tim is such an interesting, eclectic, complicated, funny, charming, sad, all those things character. They're like, we got to find somebody that can really commit to it. And when we found out that Milo Ventimiglia was interested, and a lot of people love Milo from, obviously Gilmore Girls and This Is Us, and I'm personally a big fan of his from Heroes. I was like, this is too good to be true that we get a chance to have him on board. So we had the first meeting and just said, what he thought, and he just said, I have fallen in love with the script. I've fallen in love with Tim. I want to play this character. And so he fully committed to the role. Sam is played by this kid, Sammy Dell. Found him in New York after a huge open casting call across the country. Traveled with Broadway with like School of Rock and different things like that. He just got accepted to Berklee School of Music. He's a music savant, great actor. It was the most stressful and most rewarding and the most joyful thing that I've ever done while sitting in the director's chair. When Brent and I stepped into that with our director of photography, Johnny Durango, we had to shoot the climax of the movie with 8,000 extras at Red Rocks, and we had 5 hours to shoot it. And on paper, it was impossible. And we just threw everybody in the deep end. We were running with 6 cameras, and that's such an iconic venue. It's just so sacred. It's like it's got like God's cathedral. Somebody just took the top off, and the top of the cathedral is the stars, and it's sacred. And it was very difficult to film in, but the guys absolutely stuck the landing, and every shot that we got out there is a work of art. At every point, we kind of created that world, and it's the prettiest thing that we've done so far, and the world feels like it's just grown to, it's a much bigger movie, but it still has the simple, unique, connected soul of that father-son story of the first movie, and so people are gonna love it. For us, really what allows us to kind of, our brand at Kingdom is we've kind of become known with this thematic delivery of what we call a rush of hope. Is, can we deliver a rush of hope? Can you get the audience to their feet in the first 2 minutes and the last 2 minutes of a film? You know, can you really grab their heart and hold them in that journey, and then at the end of the movie they're on their feet and they walk out the door just inspired? And I think the fact that, you know, at Kingdom we've had the number of A+ cinema scores that we've had is directly related towards the experience the audience leaves the theater with, is that hope. And so that's always the DNA, that's always what we're reaching for. This one delivers that in droves. This movie ends with intense gratitude, and I think gratitude and hope are kind of two sides of the same coin, but hope is a feeling, gratitude is earned. And so this has an earned hope that the audience is going to take with, and I think it's hope that's going to stick with you a lot longer.